There's hundreds and hundreds of questions on Quora and throughout the internet every day, with people asking which is the best boot camp, or where can I get the best courses, or what's the best course, or where can I steal the courses from on the internet, or do I need a computer science degree? What language should I learn? What are the languages I should learn? How fast can I become someone who's making money programming? Should I be a freelancer? And they are just all over the place because before you know something, you just don't know about it. I have been in that position many times in my life, and before I had spent years and years programming, I I didn't know anything about it. I was mystified when I learned that there was a HTML element called a div that could just live anywhere it wanted on the page, which is, if that means anything to you, that means you know nothing about the internet, probably. Or that's what I knew, is nothing. I messed around with MySpace pages and wrote all sorts of styles. I had no idea what I was doing, just guessing. So I can remember how it felt to have no idea what I was getting into, and I can relate. Like, how do you know if a school is going to be good if you don't know about what they teach? I just wanted to take a little time to think through that process. Like, how would you vet a school, or how would you vet a course, or a teacher, or a tutor, or how would you know what language to choose? How do you know what course of action to choose? Because even if you're learning by yourself and you're going online and you're finding tutorials or finding documentation or finding some sort of organized learning path, how do you know you've chosen the right one? How do you know what you're getting into when you don't know what you're getting into? And I think that that'll be helpful for everyone. Clearly, I have my bias about what I think is the best way, but I also don't think there needs to be a best way. There's lots of ways. There's hundreds and hundreds of different boot camps, and there doesn't need to be one best boot camp. There doesn't need to be one school that everyone goes to. There's lots of ways to teach, and even if all these places are teaching the same stuff, if it's good stuff, then great. If that sounds like something that's interesting for you and you've already listened this long, then let's take a little journey at how we might use design thinking to break down how to make decisions about a life choice like this. Because you could spend years learning 1 month of stuff, or you could learn it really fast, or you could learn all about Python and then realize you're never going to write Python at your job, or you could learn all about jQuery and then learn that you're actually going to write Python at the job. So which is the right things to learn? What are you getting yourself into? I don't know, but I'm going to try to just wing it here and go through the thought process and find out. Throughout this video, I'm bound to say a bunch of things, but I'm probably going to say the word design a lot. And so let me just clarify that when I say design, I mean the entire process, the choosing what to make, research, content strategy, working with the team, prototyping, deciding what you're going to program, deciding how you're going to work on branding and styles, and how all those things are going to fit together. So design is like capital D, big picture design. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about visual design, and then we'll talk about maybe programming. But I consider those all different design disciplines when done correctly. A design needs a goal. So if we're going to design a way to vet a school, or pick a school, or for whatever reason track down and figure out some information about a school, then we need to have a goal. So I'm just going to try to make one goal. I imagine that most people who are looking into programming and design and stuff like that, they've heard that you can make a lot of money. So they want to make more money than they're making. preferably probably in between $70 and $100,000. Sometimes you see you can get 150 or something like that, but then you're going to be living in San Francisco and you're going to spend all your money anyway. So it should be relative to where you live, that sort of thing. Hopefully you like problem solving and all the stuff that comes along with design thinking, because I think you can hate your job if you were just like programming for your boss and you didn't enjoy it. So that's the thing. So you want money, you want a job that's hopefully, if not fun, at least interesting, and that is, fun to do and it's challenging, stuff like that. To get that job, you want to learn programming. There's not a whole lot. You could go to school for graphic design. That's sort of a classic 4-year art school sort of situation still. And then you have 4-year computer science degrees. And then now you have this whole world of a billion bursting classes for every little tiny detail. How to make a drop shadow in Photoshop on Skillshare or something, or how to make a website in an hour with Firebase, or whatever it is, Illustrator, how to make drawings, or learn JavaScript, a million learn JavaScript courses, and all those sorts of things. So you want to learn all the skills to get this job, right? First of all, you need to know what those skills are. And then beyond that, you want to figure out a way to get the skills. You want to actually learn them too, right? You don't just want to get a really loose bunch of stuff thrown at you and kind of memorize it and get through it for the month and then forget it all. That's not going to be good. But you also want it to be as fast as possible. So you want to get a high-paying job as fast as possible. And to do that, you need to learn all of the skills. And that's the goal, right? So what are some reasonable expectations in how to do that? Can you do it in 5 weekends? No. Can you do it in 3 months if you study all day with a team of people on site? That's one way people are doing it. That's what this boot camp style thing is. 3 months usually, or 12 weeks. Then you have the 4 years. So that's the 4 years are kind of out of the door. Right? You can't really just hurry up and get an awesome job and learn a bunch of stuff by going to a 4-year college. And unfortunately, the 4-year colleges are like, there's so much red tape that they end up being really behind the times. The whole system needs to get overhauled big time. So I'm going to have to keep recapping a whole bunch since I didn't write a script for this. You want a job that pays a lot of money, that's fun. You want to learn all those skills really good so that you know them and you get hired and you get to choose which job you want and be picky and really take the one in the field that you like with good benefits and all that sort of stuff. And you want to do it for, in theory, as little money as possible, but also in as little time as possible. That's a lot to ask in any given situation, right? Like, people don't usually just try to go become carpenters in 3 months. They don't go try to learn everything about the stock market in 3 months. I'd become a contractor or a doctor or really anything. Nothing really happens in that time. So you're going to have to set some reasonable expectations here. Also, what if I told you it cost $5,000 and you could learn everything in a month, but it cost you $1,000 and you could learn it in 2 years? That $1,000 is less money, but you have this crazy amount of opportunity cost over those 2 years. It's not really that good of a deal. If I give you $100,000, if you give me $5,000, that's a good deal. So keep that in mind. You have to weigh the options like that. I'm so excited about this subject that my watch just thinks I'm on a run. And so I think it's time for an unsanctioned commercial that I'm making up right now, because I got this cool shirt the other day and you should check it out. Look at it. All right. So it's like a classic camping shirt and it says leave no trace, but then the guy leaving the no trace is Bigfoot or a Yeti, who is the best at leaving no trace because we can't even find them. I bought this from Simple Bits, Dan Cederholm, one of the guys who founded Dribble, and I'm just tossing this in there just for fun because I like this shirt so much. I have no uh, association with this or any affiliate stuff, but here's this awesome shirt. I think it's really cool. And also, if you're a child, they have this way cooler bright green version. If you ask me, I bought it just in case my girlfriend could fit in it, even though it's like a little tiny shirt that I can't wear. That's how cool it is. Back to regular programming. Okay, so we need a job that pays well, a job that's engaging. I mean, we could probably just leave that one out, really. A job that pays well, and it for the least amount of money or expendable income, and as fast as possible. But now, how do you get there? What do we do? What are the steps we should take? We have to form a hypothesis. We might not be correct, but that's part of the design process. Let's imagine our steps, and then we'll try them and see if they work. So if I'm going to school to learn how to design and build websites, then I think, this is my hypothesis, I think that the people who are teaching me should know how to build websites. That's one thing that I can think of. I think that the teachers who are teaching me should have had real jobs in the industry, and they know what they're teaching. They're not just hired and then reading from some kind of corporate manual or something like that. They've been out in the world, they've had jobs, they know all these things. When I go to the school, I want to be taught the things that are most important first. For example, if you were going to architecture school, you probably don't need to know, how to hang a lamp on a strange surface as the first thing you learn, right? You probably would like to learn about some kind of structural understanding, probably the basic math behind the whole thing. I don't know what they learn at architecture school, but if you were going to learn how to cook, you wouldn't want to learn how to cook some weird, not weird, but some interesting and unusual form of poisonous fish sushi or something, right? You would want to learn how an oven works, that sort of thing. So I think that understanding a foundation, and that the school has a clear foundation and steps that they go through to teach you these things, though, that would be a good thing. I guess I would want the school, I guess I'd need to show something after I came out of the school. So I'd need some sort of portfolio, and I'd need guidance on what that is, because if I don't know what that is, then, well, I wouldn't know what that is. So when you're learning all this stuff, there's just this big leap. How do you know what typography looks good, or what colors look good, or spacing? And nobody wants to hire you if you need constant directions, if you have no sense of anything visually, what's pleasing, what kind of, we all use computers all the time. You've used an application or a website that didn't work well. Do you know why? Or do they teach the thinking behind all that stuff instead of just the programming? Because if you're a programmer, but then your boss has to constantly just tell you what to program all the time, then your boss could type it faster than you. Typing is 5% of the process. The actual code, it's the least of your problems. The thinking through the process and figuring out what to program, what code to write, is much more important. So if they're not teaching those foundations, that's something you should know. And how do you vet that? Well, could you get a example lesson from them maybe? So that's one thing there. Like how are they teaching it? But again, if you don't know what you're learning, it's really hard to judge how they're teaching it. Another thing you could look at is reviews, maybe. Clearly, if somebody says this is a scam, this person is the worst, this class is terrible, that's you don't want to go down that route. And but on the other hand, it's interesting because when you're 20 years old and you went to high school and for whatever reason you're 20 and maybe some of your family, they help you pay for a boot camp and you go there and you get to meet all these new people and it's exciting. And then they ask you to write the review like the first week you're there, which a lot of the reviews I see, they're not written after they graduate. After they graduate, they're hustling to get a job. But they write the reviews early for some reason. So they're saying it's the best. I'm having so much fun here. These people are so nice, and that's great. They are nice. But when you're new, how are you even a good person to review your boot camp in a way? Like, you had fun. That's great. You were learning things. I hope you were. But were you learning the right things? Were you learning them in the right order? Were you being taught by the right people? And are you coming out of that with a portfolio that really shows your value to employers? We've got reviews, example lessons. We're going to look at their websites. The teachers should have they should have LinkedIn or something that shows they had a job, right? Because you don't want to join a pyramid scheme where just they hired the people who just went through the class. Sometimes that works, but I don't think if you've never had a real job in the industry, it's hard to really truly know what you're doing and to teach the next person. What are you going to come out of it with? You need a portfolio. Okay, and then what are you going to learn there? Because a lot of the boot camps and schools and classes and things, they say what you're going to learn there. Are you going to learn UX, which is basically design, walking through the process of how does somebody use it? They download the application and they look at it. Then what happens? How do they feel? So that involves a lot of research, content strategy, talking to people, being a liaison between visual designers, project managers. So what is that what you're learning there, or are you learning programming, and what kind of programming? Are you learning front end development? Are you learning back end development? Are you learning full stack development? Now, front end development has a lot to do with how things look, the boxes that move around, the content that's going in the boxes, and organizing where the content's coming from and how it appears, and all the little tricks like little loading bars and rounded corners. And you're working with the visual designers a lot of times. And back-end programming, works a lot with data, the data that's getting sent to the front end. Now, the front end changes on all these different screen sizes, but the back end is often it's really agnostic in that way. It doesn't care where it's going to go. It's just about organizing large sets of data. How do we send out the author of the blog post and the content of the blog post, and how can one iPhone app get that data and also another app get that data, and how can this application interface all work together? So the idea that a full stack developer exists means that you know a little bit about, or in theory, you know a lot about how the back end works and how all the data is flowing and how everything works together and larger systems considerations. And then also you are confident with the front end of how everything works. And that comes down to all these little tiny details, and half of the work is just resizing the screen over and over again. And so which are you going to learn and which are you more interested in? Does the program help you decide which direction you want to go, or do they just want to kind of spit everyone out as full stack developers? Because full stack developers, I work on the front and the back end, but I have to admit I'm 10 times better at the front end than the back end. I work on the back end because I need to, but in a real job, there's 10 or 100 developers working on these projects. Nobody is responsible for the entire application. Some of these applications make $100 million a year. There's not just one developer working back there. So if someone says you're going to be a full stack developer, you just have to know and admit that they're going to teach you a base understanding of those things, and when you get your job, you'll kind of figure out what you're going to be. But it's important to know what they're saying they're going to deliver to you, right? What are you going to be at the end of this 10 weeks or this 3 months or this year or however they're going to do it? So what are they promising you? Now that you've figured out what they've promised you, how are they going to get you there? What steps are they going to take to fulfill that promise? We have video tutorials. We have blog posts, like text type of tutorials. Maybe it has a video with it. We have sort of courses that have mini projects in them. There's courses like on Scrimba or some of these other types of classes that have an interactive text editor and things like that. There's the classic Code School, I think it was called. I think it got bought by TopToll. But there's all these things where you filled out little tests and stuff like that. They'd say, hey, we need to do this. Type in this thing and see if it works. So are they teaching you in sort of a pretend environment, or are they teaching you in a real environment with the real tools that you would learn on the job? How do you know if the teacher is real? Do they have any history? Do they have a personal website? Do they have, we'll talk about GitHub, but these public kind of places where people store their code. Can you look and see how busy they are? Can you look at their LinkedIn? Can you look at the price point? I mean, really, sometimes when you pay $20, that's what you get. $20 worth of stuff. But wasting your time on $20 class that's bad could give you some bad habits. It takes up possibly 100 hours of your time, 100 hours of your time. I mean, that's right there. That's $2,000 worth of time. Opportunity cost, possibly learning bad habits that will cost you lots more time later. So far that's the points I can think of. So now we can look through those things. Okay, looking at this list, I want to add a couple more things in here. I think that it would be pretty beneficial if the school helped you find a job or had some kind of inroads for that. And then I also think that maybe we want to adjust the ideas on having great reviews. Great reviews is certainly a signifier, but can you see not reviews, but case studies where you can see the students' portfolios and you can see and hear about how the students got jobs and things like that. So I think those are key. Whew. 24 minutes in on this baby. I've edited it up and tried to keep it tidy, and I only have so many capabilities with this text in this type of video editor thing, and I'm drinking this beer. This video is totally unofficially brought to you by Deschutes Lager, because if I buy the IPA, I'll never finish the video. But I just wanted to stop for a second here. If you've been watching this video for 24 minutes and 35 seconds, you're pretty dedicated. So that's good. You have the attention span. You have the ability to think through a process like this without being, wanting to claw your eyes out or, be extremely bored. And I think that it says a lot about how you might be the sort of person who might be good at design thinking and might enjoy it. Now we're going to go into the zone where we try to prove these things, that prove our hypothesis here, or investigate the hypothesis. How do we know how the school should know how to build websites? Well, since you don't know how to build websites yet, in theory, how would you possibly know if they know how to build websites? The first thing people think about is they look at them and they have this kind of mind and emotional connection to the website. Does it look good? Good. Well, I don't know, well, that means something different to everyone, but does it not look bad? Is it look contemporary? Does it look like other websites? Does it have roundy corners? Does it match whatever else looks cool right now? Those are good indicators. Those are gut instincts. Can I read the type? Does it have pictures of people that I can relate to? It's a really good indicator. I'm not saying it's not. Your gut feeling of what something looks like means somebody else put a lot of time into it. It means that they have a good sense of space and color and rhythm and all of the things that make up design. And that's really great. But just keep in mind, some jerk could pay a talented team of designers to make a beautiful website and then make some terrible course that teaches you all the worst things and is horrible and is bad for society in general. So that could also happen. But I would say that generally, if a website looks crappy, that's trouble, because that means that everybody on the team, whether it's one person or 100 people or 1,000 people, all of those people weren't able to tell or talk to each other and tell each other or communicate or share their thoughts to figure out. And just be honest. Why is this website so ugly? What's happening here? If they can't make a website that looks good, how are they going to teach you how to make a website that looks good? Especially when they have a whole team of people. I'm just one person, or one and a few people maybe, but some of the Lambda, as we'll talk about later, there's a $48 million venture capital funded company. So we'll take a look at that stuff. So how do we know if the company knows how to build a website? Let's first look at how the website looks on the surface, and then let's look at a tool that can tell us what the website looks like under the surface. Okay, and let me jump in here from the future and mention looking nice is one thing, but then also functioning well, besides the code that's written, actually functioning well is another thing. And a lot of people who are new to design and programming and web design, they really like some of this flashy stuff. You could scroll down the screen and stuff sliding in and there's animation, but you're not attuned yet to notice how clunky and horrible it feels. Like, oh, there's stuff flying around. A lot of these websites I look at, they're like clunk, 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 clunk. They're loading in all crappy. Maybe you can't tell it's a mess, but that's key. If the website isn't smooth, like butter, like this should be the best website ever made. It's a website to sell you on learning web design. So if it's not buttery smooth, like all of this parallaxy type of sliding of images, it might look good on your phone, but might look terrible on so that's just a skill that you might not have been able to develop yet. Having a bunch of crap happen, having a bunch of stuff sliding around doesn't mean good. The website's value is that it does what it's supposed to do, which is usually giving you information, not look all chunky and animated crap flying around everywhere. So back to the other part. I'm going to pick out some companies, and these are big boy companies. They have tons of money. So if you're going to cry about my critique of you, then that's your own problem. Not gonna rip apart some mom and pop shop or something. But let's look at the big players here. As far as my YouTube commercials and what I see on TV and stuff, we've got, Squarespace is a website building company. They don't teach you how to do anything. We could look at them. Maybe I'm gonna do that in another video. I have some feelings about Squarespace. and GoDaddy and all these big companies. I'm going to do that separately. Okay, so big companies, Lambda, like I said, they're $48 million of capital. They've got some shareholders to 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 make happy. That's their main goal. I'm sure that they have some time to work on the students, but that's one company. So that's like a $30,000 kind of school. You basically you don't have to pay up front. So that's one thing. You pay when you graduate over the course of 3 years with a maximum of $17,000 a year based on your salary, something like that. And so it's like a loan that is given to you, and if you end up working in the software industry in any way, then you pay them back over time, which is pretty cool. It's called an ISA, I think. It's an income share agreement. So we'll look at that. And then there's some other schools like Coding Dojo, and that's a school, and they're a boot camp. And then there's a famous school in Utah. I think it was an early boot camp. We'll look at that one. I forgot its name right now. Dev Mountain. Yeah, that's what that one is. And then there's some other schools like General Assembly. And there's hundreds and hundreds of these. So I'm not trying to call these people out in particular or anything like that. Please do your research and look at all these companies. But these are the companies I'm just going to kind of run through whatever this little design process we're looking at. And so those go from 30,000 to 15,000 to 10,000, and then we've got other companies, for example, Super High. That's a company, and they sell classes in increments of $200 to $600, I think. And to really get a full curriculum out of that, then I would say you probably need like 4 or 5 classes at least. So let's count them in sort of the $2,000 range, I think is fair. And then we'll look at some online classes that are, they say they're $100 or $200, but if you wait around on the page long enough, they're like $30. So we'll look at each one of those and we'll go down this list. Let's see. It says how the school should know how to build a website. Okay, we can check that. They should have teachers with real experience. We should be able to check that. And if we can't, you should be able to ask them. They should have a clear curriculum vision. They should teach more general design thinking, not just the code, because in the coming years, the code will all change, and we're probably going to go to like chips in our head pretty soon. You want this job to last you a long time, right? Like, it's not about just typing some stuff the boss says. You need to like make decisions and create a better world. They need to be able to share example lessons. They need to prove their student success. They need to make sure they help you focus in on a role, because the industry really doesn't need a bunch of generalists. They don't. Like, they have these senior developers who are dying to hire people that they don't have to tell what to do, and they need people to just take charge and ownership of all the different parts of the process in a team. Okay, and they need to have a clear promise. What are you going to get out of this? When you're done, what are you going to get? You're going to get thrown into the coder pile, or what are you going to come out of here with? And they need to have a unique and effective technique of some sort, not just, they all have different techniques. And having hiring connections would be a bonus, right? Although that's tricky, because they could have hiring connections to companies you don't want to work for. And the other part of that is, a lot of times when they have hiring connections, you might get a $90,000 job, but you're going to get a $70,000 job because the hiring connection eats the other 20. Tricky. So maybe we need to check that one on the list. Maybe we need to remove that one on the list, because the key here is, if they can prove the student value, and if you come away with the promise of whatever it is, like a clear portfolio and a clear way of speaking about your work, you don't need the hiring connection. You're going to get a job, I promise. I can't legally promise that, but I've been hired at all sorts of jobs, and nobody ever asked me to program a single thing. It has to do with how you can speak about your work and how you think about problem solving. No one's ever given me a programming test ever, and if they did, I'd say like no one actually does that stuff at 90% of the jobs. Like we don't actually think about big O at a regular, standard programming type of website application job. Okay, anyway, on to the testing of our hypothesis here. I don't know if you saw what I did there with the text, but I changed the names because the names of these companies don't really matter. I'm trying to put them into categories. You got your big name for your computer science college. It's going to cost you like $300,000. And it's going to take 4 years. So there's all the opportunity costs of all that time. Now, I went to a 4-year college, but I stayed there for 5 years for art. And luckily I got some good scholarships and stuff, but that school now is $55,000 a year. So if you think about it, living in Oakland, $55,000 a year times 4, that's $220,000 a year. It probably costs you at least $20,000 a year just to like exist and like lay your head somewhere. So that's $80,000 plus 220, so $300,000. That's a lot of money. I'm not saying that's a bad route. I'm just saying keep that in mind. You might not be able to work that whole time. So it's going to cost that much money, and then you're not going to make money for 4 years. Depends what you're doing. I'm glad I went to my school. But, okay, so anyway, 4-year college at maybe state level or something that's not Harvard, it's still going to run you like 120 or more, right? Probably more. Then you have your full-time online boot camps, and some of these are really fancy. I'm not going to lie. There's some really good ones. And, I can't speak for all of them personally, but I have my little spies in each of these boot camps, and there's a couple of them that are intense, really intense programming schools, and they are really teaching you some hardcore programming. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with that because you need to learn design too. Otherwise, you're just going to do what the boss says, and that's how the atomic bomb gets built. Okay, so now on to the next one. So those are serious full-time online boot camps. Some of them go from 9 months to 24 months. The 24 months one seems insane. They're trying to teach you web programming, 3D modeling, virtual reality. Like that's too much stuff. It's too big of a group of things to learn that will actually be used in your real job. So those long 24 months ones are too crazy. Do like a 6 or 9 month one and then go learn on the job. That's what I suggest. Then you have your full-time in-person boot camps, which I don't think they can teach you that much about programming in that amount of time, but I think that being with the people and being motivated and hanging out with people and working on projects together does have a huge impact. And I know a lot of people who've gone to those schools, and some of them didn't come out even programming, but they learned I like entrepreneurship, they met people, and they built their careers out of those experiences. So a quick 3-month boot camp, even though it's, $15,000 to $30,000, could be the best thing ever for you. I just don't know because I don't know you, and I don't know that particular boot camp's regiment that they have there. Then you have these part-time 3-month kind of online boot camps, which probably used to be the in-person boot camps, and then they wanted to stretch. So they started hiring their own students to teach hundreds of cities, and they have created this sort of online version of the boot camp so they can get away with charging like $10,000, but there's no telling how good the quality is. So that's what we're going to test next. Then there's these targeted online courses, like putting a bunch of super high classes together, or a bunch of Skillshare classes, or whatever combination of things, or General Assembly kind of UX intensives, things like that, sort of in that range. Then there's the self-paced online classes, which are anywhere from $10 to $200, and then you could combine 7 of those and end up paying $1,000 or whatever. But those are up to you. There's no teacher who's going to track you down. There's no students to hold you accountable. There's not really any team effort. You can track that down to see the success rate there. And then there's the free online courses, bless their hearts, a free code camp, different tiers of Code Academy, and all these different kind of things that are to get you in the door. Free code camp is sort of a more altruistic endeavor, but at the end of the day, the rates of success are what's important. So you can look deep into that and see how many people are actually finding success there, and then also relate how long is it taking. Because if a $15,000 boot camp can get you in place and all learned up and in a job in 3 months, 6 months, a year, what does that count compared to working a full year by yourself for free? It's free, but maybe at the end of that year you still don't have a job. That job could have already paid for that $15,000. Oof, this is so long. So many things to talk about. If I was trying to monetize this video, I could break it up into 10 parts, but I'm just not going to. If you don't want to watch this whole video, then you don't deserve the advice. Okay, we've outlined all the types of schools, and we've outlined how to determine if these schools have what it takes to teach us the things and get us a job. So now I'm going to just go look on the internet and try to go down this list or something. But I can't really see it at the same time, so I have to write it down, which, you know what, writing things down is good. So I'll just start with Harvard. We could go to Harvard University, and we can look at it. Okay, does this site look good? That's the thing, right? It seems pretty okay. I usually think a video that goes above and below my browser means somebody wasn't being very thoughtful. But as far as websites go, your average parent's going to think this is fine. This is kind of weird. What if I'm up here and you probably can't see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I'm up at the top and I'm looking at media, and then I want to go to visit. But I have to pass over schools, and then schools opens a drop-down menu, and then I can't get to visit. So right there, I would just say that's a huge major fail. Like, I can't actually click on visit to your school. And you have a computer science department at your school. They should be building your website as part of their curriculum. That's pretty embarrassing. Okay, so that's looks. There's all these flashing things. I also think just content strategy-wise, having drop-down menus of any sort to begin with is foolish and outdated. Then you have these, kind of card things, but they have kind of off-center height that has this horizontal rag, which in some cases is fine, but in this case just seems like a bad pre-made theme or something, and the way things jump around here, I don't know. Sorry, but I just think it's not very impressive for supposedly one of the top 3 most famous schools in the whole world, and they have $40 billion of money stored away somewhere. Okay, so there's another thing I can do. I don't know how to do it in Safari, so I'll have to open Chrome. But to tell if the website is written well, high quality. So you already determined it looks fine. Does it function well? There's huge major failings on just the main navigation as far as how to visit the school. I can't do it unless I accidentally trick the user interface into letting me do it. That's pretty shitty. Okay, now I will look in Chrome here, and I'll show you another trick. If you're in Chrome or a web browser, I'm using Chrome specifically, I can open like an incognito window. And I'm only doing this to be extra nice, just to make sure I don't give anybody a hard time that they don't deserve. But if I open an incognito window, it's Command-Shift-N in my case, and then I can put Harvard in here. And then I can open up the developer tools with Command-Option-I. Now inside the developer tools, I have this option in here called Lighthouse, which is a tool to help us see when our websites are running poorly or when there's things we can optimize, and to generally give a loose score to our website's quality. So we can do that right now to Harvard's website. It's going to run through and open a bunch of pages and do a whole bunch of weird stuff, and it's going to test for performance and all sorts of stuff. So this isn't that bad. It actually says 67 performance, which isn't ideal. You know, anything in the orange isn't ideal, but it's not crazy. As you'll see, it gets much worse. Accessibility up there in the 90s, best practices in the 90s, SEO in the 90s. That's really great. That's really cool. So I just wanted to show you that as the first example of this. Now, Harvard, if you don't want to pay $300,000 yet or ever, you could take Harvard's free online class for computer science, their free online intro. I tried to take it, and I thought it was horrible and made me want to rip my eyes out, and I did not like it at all. Everything I thought they were teaching in the order they were teaching it was, in my mind, a terrible way to teach it. There's also, I don't know, 300, 500, 1,000 people in the audience, and just a guy running around, a sweaty guy running around on stage. So you should check it out for yourself if you want. But conceptually, how they laid out the ideas is, I think it's really bad. But that'll give you an idea of what that's like. Now, I'm not going to go look at regular state college schools because they're almost always terrible and have terrible scores. And I'm just going to jump straight to... We should also say that Harvard, you can't go talk to the teacher. So on to some of these other type of schools. Here is the Lambda School. Okay, now, does it look nice? What does it look like? Okay, Lambda. Look, it's going for this sort of we are a Harvard type school logo, like we have a crest. And they have go all in. All right, we got some buttons. They care about Black lives. That's nice. Of course they should. And they've got this woman with even more foundation on than I have in her little apartment that doesn't look that much different than my studio. The little shelf, things like that. Okay, Lambda's big deal. What's their vision? Okay, Lambda School is 100% online. Okay, it's 9 months long. You can get a career in 9 months. And then second most important is pay nothing up front. We help you get hired. You don't have to pay until you get $50,000 a year. That's pretty nice. I wonder how deep that contract goes, though. What's considered the tech industry? If you don't make it as a full stack developer and then later you work as a social media marketer, does that mean you have to pay them back? It's tricky. There's all these people. Look at all these smiling, happy people. They have little papers that say they finished school. Okay, well, anyway, now they've become developers is what we're led to believe. That's nice. Lambda. So I don't know. I mean, Lambda looks pretty nice. It's got some roundy corners, some, good typography. They're certainly not just some nonsense. But they don't tell me a whole lot about their course. And I don't really love that they're ready to hustle. I really don't like the whole hustle mentality. I don't want to hustle. I want to learn things. I want to do design. I want to do it well with purpose and then go home. I don't want to hustle as a lifestyle. So you can look at their full stack web development course, and they say you're going to learn JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Node, React, Python, Redux, and SQL, which is interesting that they ordered it that way, because you might want to order it differently, because JavaScript is Node. Node is JavaScript. That's one thing. React is technically also JavaScript. Redux is JavaScript, basically. Or, it's kind of like a methodology in a way. SQL's databases. Python is a functional programming language that's often used for the backend. I would have put HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, something like that. I don't know. Whatever. They got some stuff there. Full stack. They're very intent on making sure that you're going to be a full stack developer. It's going to take 9 months. Now, this schedule is pretty intense. It's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I have a colleague, friend sort of person who I follow in my chat room who is taking their course. And he is working all day long. He definitely does not have a job. And it is working him. But it seems high quality. It seems great. They say you build real products on real teams, but do they build real products, or do they build products that seem like real products? I'm not sure. Now, when you look at their vision of how they're going to teach the class, you can look. There's launch, which is, everybody gets to know each other, gets used to the class. That's totally reasonable. And then right here in the first 4 weeks, you learn HTML, CSS, Git, and UI principles. To me, it's pretty fast. HTML and CSS are serious business. As much as people like to pretend they're simple languages, those people don't know how to write them well. It would make a lot of sense to learn typography, user testing, and all that stuff. How do websites work, HTTP, how are the files sent back and forth, all of this sort of backstory, and working with testing prototypes, little mini prototypes with people, stuff like that. Group critiques, those sorts of things. And then in week 5, they just jump straight into React. Like, they haven't even taught JavaScript yet. And if you love React, then you love React. That's great. I don't have a problem with React, but I do have a problem with people learning React instead of learning the web ecosystem that React is trying to help out with and solve some problems of. Because React's not going to be around forever, but HTML is going to be around for a long time. CSS is going to be around for a long time, and JavaScript is going to be around for a long time. And by the time you learn all this stuff in 9 months, React might not be around. Who knows? Anyway, that seems a little weird and out of order to me. Advanced React. They're basically teaching you how to make a bunch of, toy applications. And then you do some back-end development. How are you making a React site with advanced state and state management if you haven't even learned how to make anything with the back-end language yet? It seems like you would want to learn Node first, early, when you were learning JavaScript, and then you would build a little server API that would then deal with authentication, and then you would build the front end that would take in information and be the client side of the server side. So this is a little weird. I don't really know. I don't mean to be a jerk, but I just don't think Java is really the thing to learn right now. Then we do some computer science. After all that stuff, it seems like I don't know if you need to do it at all in a lot of cases, but I would have done it early on, maybe the first week. Anyway, then you can see all these courses kind of have the last 7 weeks or so, or the last couple months is just trying to find a job time. You're not even necessarily in school. There's no margin here towards this edge, which makes me feel like somebody's dropping the ball here. But I do like that they are telling you could be a front-end developer, a web developer, an app developer, a software engineer. But the problem with this is these aren't actually different roles. These are all the same role. They're not saying you could be a UX designer, you could be a research advocate, you could be a user testing expert. These are basically just saying you could be all the same thing. So that's what they're trying to teach you. They want you to be a full stack developer because that's the chances of you hopefully fitting somewhere. A lot of these people actually end up being kind of project managers or roles they didn't intend to be because they're not necessarily great at developing, but having that background is useful in many roles. In theory, when I first saw this income service agreement, I thought it was really exciting. I thought it was kind of like the way to go. But I'm curious what happens if you take a lot of time off work and to do these classes, and then you do get a job and you live in a state where maybe a reasonable job is $50,000, but maybe your rent is pretty high. This income share agreement could be quite a burden on you if you didn't have a lot of headroom in your salary. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Now, they will give you outlines of some of their stuff, and you can look at some success stories, but you definitely can't talk to the teacher. And if you sign up and apply, you will definitely get hundreds of emails from their sign-up team and all that sort of stuff. Like they probably pay more people to try to get you to sign up than they pay teachers to teach the class. And that's because they're working on a big level. They need tens of thousands of people to take this class instead of like 100 or, whatever a smaller team would need. I'll just take their homepage, I guess, since that's what I did with Harvard. And we can run the little test on them. Shoot, I had one more thing to say about these people. Lambda. Oh, the other thing you can do, so you can't, okay, well, here's the performance. 38 out of 100. Like I said, pretty much above 80, depending on what you're willing to sacrifice for your company, is probably fine. We all have performance budgets for our sites, but 38 performance is dismal. That's miserable. I don't see why this little tiny front of a web page that has like 3 images and a little tiny bit of texts can't have 100 performance. That seems pretty unreasonable and strange. But the other thing I was going to say is that if you can't really track down the reviews, and like I said, you can't really trust the reviews of people who learned something who never knew it before. They're always going to come ahead with a positive experience because they know more than they did before. They're not auditing the class from an outside consultancy or something to like check to see if it's a quality. They're just saying like, I love my school. My school is the best. But what you can do is you can look around in the news. You can look at how is it going for these companies. And if you just look up some school like Lambda, if I could spell it, I think it was in like New York Times or something. Oh, here we go. All right, this is in February, earlier in the year, much before this current sort of COVID crisis I'm in at the time of this recording. But this whole article is about Lambda School and how, they sort of promised and expected a certain amount of hiring. And I don't know what they promised exactly, but they fell very far short. They're not getting people hired. And you can read this article. Just look up Lambda Schools misleading promises. And, it's early stages for these schools. And honestly, if I give these schools a hard time, then you're not hearing me give the regular school system the hard time that it deserves, which is like it's a failure. It's so screwed up, and we need to fix it all. But this is an example of a $48 million funded company that is has a pretty great curriculum. It's 9 months though, and it's not cheap. You might be able to get into it because you can't pay, but that's a major draw of it, is that you don't have to pay up front. But it doesn't mean that spending that 9 months of your time is going to amount to anything. And it doesn't mean you're going to just magically get a job. And I would argue that the future of the job market is not about coders. It's about designers and people who have a larger scope of understanding. Yes, you have to know how to program, but you also need to know how to talk to designers. You need to have a mentality of problem solving that goes beyond stitching together APIs and using whatever the latest state management tools are and build systems and things like that, and really think back to what is the point of this project? Is this website bringing anyone value, or is it just a ton of shit all shoved into a website? And what does that mean? I mean, this website is 38 out of 100, and they're a website building teaching company. So that's something to think about on that side. Now I'm going to look at a couple other websites. Let's see. Dev Mountain. I'm not sure what Dev Mountain's legacy is going to look like, but I'm pretty sure they are a legit company with like a, honest company, and I think they did a pretty good job. I've seen quite a few real reviews from people, so that's cool. Let's take a look at their score. All right, 29 and some pretty low best practices. That's a little embarrassing. But they've got reduced tuition available. It's another kind of thing I'm confused about. Tuition seems to just change with all these companies whenever they feel like it. Like maybe it's a bad month. Oh, well, we'll give you $3,000 off. I think that if your school costs $8,000 to hire the people to do the teaching and to dedicate the time to you, and that they've figured out that their value is of a certain amount to you, and they've created a price, that price shouldn't be fluctuating based on how many students they have that month. The value should be clear. So that's a little weird. Also, I'd say this site, all these really long lines and stuff, it's not that legible. I'm not really feeling a lot of type hierarchy and clarity. And I'm not even making these things small. A lot of times when you go to these websites, you can make them small. Like, what's going on with this footer here? Like, all these things are all smashed together there. It just shows that like did they hire someone else to make the website for it? Like, look at that. What's going on? All this stuff is just smashed together. Like, they didn't think anyone was going to visit it on a phone, or anyway, that's weird and unacceptable. So, does it look nice? Not really. Is it a well-made site? No, definitely, pretty much not. And can you talk to the people? Well, I guarantee you if you apply, they will call you all the time. Another thing is a lot of these courses, they have a pre-test course where they basically want you to learn an intense amount of the JavaScript curriculum before they allow you to take the course with them. So if you can prove you can learn it by yourself, you can go to one of these schools. Also, we should just check the vision here. The vision is they are career focused. Okay, well, I don't know. If you're trying to train someone for a career, I don't know how you would be any other way. Also, while it's on my mind, before we go to the next phase here, watch out, or be aware of these other schools that are like UCLA Annex Boot Camp or State of Florida Boot Camp or whatever. There's this whole company of boot camps, and I haven't taken their class, but I feel like I can make an educated guess that these are not very high quality, like training programs a la ITT Tech style, and they are co-opting the names of famous colleges. So UCLA, for example, famous college. UCSD, famous college. I mean, I live in California, but I've been seeing them, and I tracked it down through the internet. It's all one or two companies, and they license the name of the extended education sector of a college, and then they use one of the rooms on campus during the summer sometimes or at off times, and they make it look like it's a UCLA official, computer science boot camp programming type of thing. And that seems pretty tricky. So be careful about those. Just because it says a famous college's name on it doesn't mean it has anything to do with that college at all. All right, the next one in the rungs here, I would say down the ladder, would be Coding Dojo. Maybe you've seen them on YouTube ads or something. They are hitting it hard. I feel like I see one every day. So I jump in here. I see a bunch of flashing type, which, if you don't know what that is, it's loading the fonts, but they're not quite ready when you get there, so then they all flash. So they have part-time boot camp, and these companies are always acting like you only have a week, you're gonna miss your chance. They're always doing this kind of apply now or you'll miss your spot, which I just feels like bad business. They have all this stuff here, cool pictures of people. They're all sitting in rooms on computers. That seems like what will happen. Become a software developer in 14 weeks. That seems really short to be able to learn anything. I mean, it took me 10 years to know what I know now. And I'm not the best programmer around by far. Yeah, I actually applied to be a teacher at this place, and it was pretty clear that I didn't need to know anything to do that. Also, I don't know if you can see it, but like this website is like really janky. Maybe it's not this page, but there's a lot of like flickering and just like weird stuff happening. So if you go to like full-time software development, first of all, this isn't a button. I can't click it, which is weird, right? It looks like I should be able to click it. I can't. Okay. On-site immersive bootcamp. Is this one? Is this a button? Okay. That's kind of a thing with drop downs. They're just kind of a mess. So this is a good example. I don't know if you can see it because I'm capturing the screen, but as I scroll, it's like it's kind of doing this weird, like this parallax thing, but it's just doing a shitty job, and like nobody at the company notices, and the sides are all it's all weird. It's really messed up. Just look at it. Can you see it? I mean, there's absolutely no win on this like super messed up animation. And I'd like to hear about these jobs. Do they get jobs? Here's an outline of the 14-week boot camp. They say you learn 3 full stacks. Now, I feel like I know a little bit of like a Node Ember stack, and I know like a WordPress stack, and I've worked with like a Django Angular stack, but I wouldn't say that I know any of those stacks all the way at all. And they're telling you I'm going to learn 3 full stacks. So let's see. The first 2 weeks I learn web fundamentals, and the 3rd and 4th week I learn Python. Then I learn Ruby on Rails, and Angular, and .NET, and React, and Java. Okay, that's crazy. Those don't even fit together. Do you get to choose? Okay, you get to choose. That's good. Maybe I overreacted there. But even then, I still think that it's crazy for you to do like a Python stack, and then do a Ruby stack, and then do a .NET stack. That's just crazy. It makes no sense. And then, the last couple weeks are trying to get you a job, writing stuff on boards. We're going to do, what's this? Virtual schedule algorithm sessions. Nobody needs algorithms. It's just nonsense. Algorithm is just a list of directions. Lecture, group activities, tech talks. Anyway, this course is like super worrisome for me. I feel like they spend all their money on advertising and on email outreach, because once you sign up for these, you get emails from them for years. But let's just take this time to also, the other funny part is these, I don't know if they took these photos or not, but at one time I found like 6 different coding camps that all had the same picture of these two women sitting at a computer. It's pretty funny because it was just a stock image. But let's look at this. Let's generate a report for Coding Dojo. Okay, performance 48, accessibility 59, best practices 64. Well, they got their SEO, which means it's good. People can find it on the internet and then pay them money. But I don't know. I think it's pretty. I just think like I don't even think their website's very easy to read or really tell what the heck's going on. And so then if it also has really low performance, it's just not a very good trade-off. It doesn't seem fair. Let's see my list. Can they build a website? I would say no. Is the experience on the website good? No. Do they have a vision? Yeah, it's to get your money. What else? I can't even read my own writing. Can you get examples of the lessons? Can you get a clear value? I don't know. I bet you could look in further. Like, do people get hired? What role are they trying to get you into? Just whatever. That's up to you to check out. I'm just showing you ways you can think about these websites. This one's clearly a really crappy website. I'm just going to say it because it's a fact. The next price point I wanted to get to is sort of more of a $400 to $2,000 range, which is definitely still an investment. But depending on what you're doing, it's certainly not the same as spending $30,000, and it's certainly not the same as spending 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week working on something in a immersive fashion. So companies like Super High, they seem to be really nice people. They've got nice, fun design. They're a small team of people, and they're doing a pretty awesome job. Their courses are in between, I think, like $200 and $400 or so, and you might buy a bunch of them. So they have like their foundational JavaScript. This is like all kind of a little blinky and it's doing some weird stuff here, which is a little concerning. But they're taking a particular angle, which is they want to be fun and help creative people, maybe people who are visual designers or who are programmers or people who want to pivot within their role. And I think they do a pretty good job. It's sort of like I've taken a lot of these courses. So it's sort of like, here's how you do this, here's how you do this, here's how you do this. Not necessarily like a ton of conceptual design thinking. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to give them as much of a hard time because the barrier of entry is very low. If you have $200 and you want to spend a couple weeks, learning about some code or checking out some different parts of the industry, it's more than worth the money for sure. It's not a crazy investment. Even if you were to spend $1,000, $2,000 on their courses, your return would be great. And you can see they have all these student examples. Like, all of these students are making these really cool. I mean, a lot of these websites are like way cooler than anything we ever get to work on in the real world. They're definitely starting people off on the right foot of making sure things are fun and visually pleasing. I think that some of the teaching styles is pretty surface level, and I bought their book and read it, and I've taken some of the classes for research. But I guess what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, although they might not be like the best course in the whole world, in my opinion, they are 10 times worth the price of their course, and I'm sure they're just putting more time and money into making their courses better and better as their company grows. So that's exciting, and they're real people. You can track them down, which is what I wanted to talk about. But we couldn't talk about it yet because the other courses don't really let you know who the teachers are. You don't really get to know who the teacher is, or who's making the videos, or who's going to be your kind of like group team lead, and were they somebody who just went through the course themselves, that sort of thing. But now we're down to this level. You can sort of start to see who's who, or you can just sort of search people. So we got founder here, Rick Lomas, Chris Lawrence, Marie V. Nadal. I don't know where the visual designer is, but I tracked her down once. She's got some cool stuff. They're a real team. You could go and you can look up these people and you can look at them on GitHub, which I'll show you in a minute. But that's another way you can track people down to see, like, are they actually working all the time? What are they up to? Can I go look at their websites? Can I get a feel for who they are as people and what type of teachers they are? And like I said, at this price point, there's no reason why you can't just spend $100 or $200 and just take one of these courses and decide if you like it before investing in more of them. Whereas with the other course, you spend so much time taking the practice tests and getting in the course, you're in it for 9 months at that point. So hopefully you like the teachers. At least this offers a stepped way to get into it. Now from here, you can jump down to like Udemy is an example of sort of a big mass teaching platform type of thing. Web development. So you can see all these different ones. Complete Python Bootcamp from 0 to hero. All right. Used to be $114, now it's $15. So all of these courses used to be more and are really cheap now. But again, why are they changing prices? Are they changing in value? Are they old? Did they try to hit people with the big price at the beginning, and then over time they say, what the hell, let's lower it, see if people will buy it? Are some of these people just make a course and put it up there? There's no real way of telling if it's any good. But I feel like there's two main courses that get the most attention, and one of them is this one, the Complete 2020 Web Development Bootcamp. I see a lot of these commercials on YouTube. So you can look at this and you can say, okay, $15.99. Sometimes I've come here, it says $200, but then if I scroll around on this page long enough, then it goes down to $10.99. You know, it's 86% off all of a sudden for some reason. Why would it be 86% off? It's creepy. I actually bought all these courses just to watch them. She actually does a pretty great job of explaining a few things. But what I wanted to say here was you can watch a few of the previews and see if you like it. You can read all about like how does the internet actually work, and then you can see how she explains it, and that's gonna give you an idea of her personality. And then you can look at all these reviews. You know, this is an exceptional course for beginners. Do you think this expert came in here and then wrote that this is an exceptional course for beginners? It's extremely well curated, they say. How many courses have they taken? I don't know. Who knows? I would say that even pro coders could get a lot from this course. That might be true in certain cases. But I'm just trying to point out that reviews are helpful, but you need to take them with a lot of salt because a lot of them are first-time programmers who have never even finished the course. And so take that into consideration. And what else was I going to do? I was going to look her up and show you something else. So you could say Dr. Angela Yu. Tells you a little bit about her. She's a developer and lead instructor. And I think it's called like App Brewery. So you could look up Angela Yu and then you could look up GitHub. And GitHub is a kind of a social network for sharing code for professional programmers. So your code is often publicly available and then you can all work on it together, and sometimes it's private, but you can sort of look in here and you can look and see, this will show you sort of like how much programming she's done. She's actually a medical doctor, which is interesting, and she's an iOS developer. She founded this she founded this company, and so you can look at all her different repositories. They are all repositories for the school, and you can see that in 2020, she hasn't been doing much programming, maybe because she doesn't do it publicly. But you could say back to 2019, not necessarily a ton. 2018, barely any. 2017, barely any. So she's not doing a lot of public programming. But that doesn't mean that she's not working and not doing programming, because a lot of us have accounts on another network like this called Bitbucket or GitLab. And a lot of times our work projects are hidden. So I have, tons of stuff on GitLab and tons of stuff on Bitbucket and tons of stuff on GitHub, but they're just like hidden projects from companies that I contracted with and things like that. So they might not necessarily show up here, but you can track these people down. You could say like, she didn't really program before 2016 for the most part. It's pretty sparse. So that's just something that can help you think about it. Then you can just look her up on YouTube. You could just say like Angela Yu, whatever. You can look at her Twitter. You can look up on YouTube, and you could just kind of hear this like, here's like a developer story. This is basically a Udemy commercial.
99,000 students. Yeah,
She's got 99,000 students. I don't know if I'd necessarily be proud of that, though. The other thing that these courses have, first of all, it's so cheap. It's $19. I mean, I guess in theory, you just buy it because who cares? It's not no shirt off your back. But if you spend hundreds of hours working through it and it teaches you bad habits, it could be terrible. Another thing you could do is you can buy it, and then you can go into these group chat rooms that they offer. So they offer these group chat rooms where everyone can go and discuss the course, and usually it's full of excited people who really want to learn programming. But on the downside of it, you can see a lot of people saying, oh no, I'm never going to get this. And there's so many people asking the same questions over and over and over again because there isn't a human teacher there. So if a recording in the video series is recorded and it, for whatever reason, that one just doesn't explain it very well, they don't often redo them. They don't have a system in place where they can fix them. So the comments below the video just fill up with like hundreds and hundreds, if not, more comments saying like, I can't get mine to work. Mine doesn't work. Mine doesn't work. Mine doesn't work, which is unfortunate. But that's just a side effect of one of these things. So oftentimes, as good as Angela does explain some of these things in her course, that's me watching it as a person who's been doing this for more than 10 years. And even then, I don't think it's very clear. So I can't even imagine what it would have been like if me in 2010 tried to watch this course. It probably would have just blown my mind. I would have been so confused because they go so fast and they miss so many things. So oftentimes you get what you pay for there, even though everybody means well. You have to be careful with this idea of getting something for free, because you could, I would consider $15 so cheap that it's free. And there are also thousands, tens of thousands of like videos on YouTube you could watch for free, and you can just go read the official documentation for a programming language for free and all of those things. And some people learn that way. Some people are just like, bam, I looked at all the source code, I figured it out. They just like really get off on figuring that stuff out. Other people, I think your just brain doesn't work that way. But maybe you'd be a great developer, a great designer, but you need to have somebody kind of walk you through the conceptual ideas behind that and really like shift your mental model. And you could go to her website too. You could go to like App Brewery. Okay, so App Brewery just has like a bunch of lists of things. I don't know what's all this big white space down here. They don't do any of their design. They get someone else to make these little like images and things. And then they kind of show some of their work. They always are showing this one double dating app that this guy made. I think it's gone now. But that's their big claim to fame as far as success story. But all of this like margins and spacing around these logos just kind of shows they don't really care that much, or they're not very aware of visual design, and kind of just all the margins are all weird and off. So you're not going to get visual design and the user experience type of things. You're going to get a very surface level of how things work a little bit. And you can break all the practice sites I see that it made in that course are very easy to break. But let's take it and put it in the little inspector thing and run the Lighthouse report just for fun, because that is her company's website that she founded. So if she is in charge of making sure that that website is good, that can reflect on her a little bit as well. There's also another big YouTube guy, Andres something, I think. Performance 7 out of 100. That's pretty bad. So keep that in mind. If you're getting taught by somebody who's okay with a 7 out of 100, I mean, if you think about school grades, it goes like 50 to 60 is sort of like an F. So anything below that is failing. You get what you pay for. But the key is here, like, what do these companies do? Like, does she know how to build a website? I guess, but does she know how to build, or did she decide to spend the time to build this website correctly? No. What's the vision? Just check out our courses. Lowest common denominator, whoever will buy these things. Can she prove her students are successful? Well, one of them was, but she said she had 99,000 students or something, right? So that's if you look at it that way, you have 99,000 students. She should probably have had. There should probably be 1,000 like startups or 1,000 design agencies that have popped out of that many people. What role are you going to do? She's not teaching visual design or anything like that for sure, because I watched the course. It's all surface level HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and a few other frameworks. React, there's a lot of React in that one. What's her promise? Her promise is if you do the work and you're able to do the work with those lessons and get a job, then you can have it. That's that promise. Okay, so I'm tired, and I showed you a bunch of techniques. All right, the school, you could use these techniques with any of the schools is what I'm saying. It doesn't, any of the schools, you should, do they know how to build a website? Is their website, 95 and above if you look at the Lighthouse debugger type of thing? That's, I don't know, maybe it's not the most important thing, but it's pretty telling. In both cases, the bigger company should definitely have a really nice website, and the little tiny company with just a few people should also have a really nice website, because both ends of the spectrum really have no reason not to have a high scoring, easy, and pleasurable website. That's what they're teaching you to do. Can you prove that the teachers have real experience? Can you track down the teachers of the course? Sometimes you can't track them down. And sometimes when you track them down, you can't necessarily get reliable information, but it's still a point that you can try to check out. Do they have a clear vision of the curriculum? Are they telling you what you're going to get out of it? Like what parts are you going to learn? How are they going to help you define what your next steps are going to be, and how is their unique teaching style different than other companies? Do they teach design thinking, visual design, user testing? Are they going to have you work with real users on real projects, and are you going to have critique and all that kind of stuff to really help you figure out all the edge cases and start to build like a new conceptual and mental model for how to work with people and how to build products that people are going to use, and understand the empathy and the impact and the responsibility you have as a designer when you're building things for the world? Do they share example lessons? Can you see an example lesson from, let's say, the first week when they're teaching, maybe the first day of teaching HTML? Because if you can watch that and you feel a connection to them and you feel like their teaching style is working, and then maybe let's say you watch Introduction to Functions or something later in the course, something a little more programmatic, like programming type stuff, and then you sense the same type of teaching style and that it sticks with you, and you feel like it's good for you, then that's going to go a long way into understanding if the course is going to be right for you. Can you prove the students' value? So, can you somehow see if the students are having success beyond their hiring connections? Because anyone can get hired, but you don't always necessarily want to work at like a lending company working on email HTML. Trust me, that's the like worst job in the world, is doing HTML email. And you might go into this thinking you're going to be, who knows, whatever this pie in the sky idea of a web developer is, and then you end up doing busy work. Can you prove that these students are standing out above the rest of the students with what skills they've come out with, and where they've gotten hired, and are they happy, that type of thing? How are they going to help you focus on a particular role? Because I guarantee you, I imagine 25% out of 100 people are really going to be well suited for full stack development. Some people are going to be far to the front end, and they are going to be really CSS minded and really work about responsive layouts and those sorts of like really technical considerations, typography, and really blend over into visual design. And then some people are going to want to be left alone. They're going to build APIs and write documentation, and they're going to have a completely different personality. So if the company or if the school that you're working with isn't able to guide you and help shape and create a portfolio for you and help you write about your work and help you really hone in on what value you can bring that makes you unique, then you're just going to be another coder in an interview. So and you're not going to find the job that is most suited for you either, because like I said, maybe you don't want to work at a used car e-commerce store or something. Maybe you really are excited about certain nonprofits or working in schools, or you like guitars. You can get a job working on a Go Ember stack at Fender Guitars in Hollywood or something. So if you know what you want to get into, these teachers should be able to personally help you mold and craft your vision and explain who you are. Let's see. Okay, well, what's their promise? Do they stand behind it? That can be loose. It depends who's who in these cases. And then, do you believe that they have an effective technique? And I guess that's all. I mean, I just think that when you're going into this stuff, don't just blindly choose. Wouldn't be the end of the world. But it's all about timing, right? Like, you want to learn the best way you can learn, and you want to learn it in a way so that you don't learn a bunch of bad habits, and so that you are able to take all these concepts and take them in a positive way and be able to really let them sink in and be able to apply them to things. Like, does the course give you lots of challenges? Are they real world challenges with a group, or are they automated testing code challenges that just turn red or green? Are you talking to real clients? Are they teaching you how to sell your work? Are they teaching you how to deal with timelines and how to work in kind of like a lean, agile way? What if you only have a week to get something done? What do? Do you build a prototype? Do you hire out some of the work to someone else? How can they create an environment where it's like you're getting way more experience than you thought was possible within that time period? And I think that's where you start to weigh the money versus time scenario here, because time is the most valuable asset that you have. It can't be too quick. You just can't learn that much stuff in 3 months. But you can learn very little in 2 years if you take the wrong path also. Learning how to learn and learning how to work with these concepts and look up the documentation and really have the strength and courage to rise to the occasion and figure out these things and do the problem solving. That's what the field really wants. That's what they need. They don't need a bunch of people who just get told what to do. They need people who figure out what to do and then figure out how to do it. And so you need to make sure whatever school you choose can do that things for you. I don't know. I was just Just thinking if there's anything else. There's also these other companies. There's this company called Career Karma, and they have all this advertising that says learn programming, learn coding for free. And that's not true. They don't teach programming. What they are is a funnel. They went to boot camps themselves, I'm pretty sure. And these guys were like, well, I don't want to program. But you know what? Everyone else wants to program just like I did. And so let's create this funnel system. So it's a social network kind of thing where everybody goes in and they make friends and form groups and things. And then eventually they pump each other up and they all get teamed up with Lambda and Flatiron and I don't know, 10 different programming boot camps. And then Career Karma, the way they make their money is they take a little cut of kind of pairing you up with the boot camps. It's not, it's totally a legitimate business model, and I think that they are, pumping people up and getting them excited and telling them what to expect in the different programming boot camps. And I think they're probably doing a pretty good service to the community. But don't be fooled; you can't learn to program there for free, but they can help you decide to choose Lambda, which is free until you can pay for it. So there's just so many tricky things. There's so many ways to learn, and it'd be cool if you had an older sister or a best friend who taught it to you, or you had a mentor over the years. I've paid lots of people in the industry who I've met or on the internet or seen and thought like I'd like to be taught by them, and I just called them and offered them money to mentor me, and that's worked out really good. But anyway, I hope that this outline of kind of how to break down what you're really looking for and how to decide if these options have what you're looking for is helpful. It's not meant to be specific about any of these companies, but this is more of like a framework, a mental framework you can use, like a design system to help you choose the path that's right for you. You can always find me on the internet, and I have time slots where I talk to people about career advice and help them choose, advice from a real person over the phone. So if, who knows, maybe I'll have to shut that down in the future if it gets too busy. But it's out there as of the time I made this video, and now I'm done making this video, and I'm going to go to bed. Goodbye.